The European Union has just taken a major step which will have big implications for the world of technology and for one company in particular. Let's see what's going on. By autumn 2024, USB Type-C will become the common charging port for all mobile phones, tablets and cameras in the EU. Negotiators agreed today. Wow, that is incredible. And this is an announcement that has been almost a decade in the making. If you follow EU politics quite closely, if you follow the world of tech quite closely, you will know that this is a move that the EU has wanted to make for quite some time, and only now they're getting around to doing it. Under the new rules, consumers will no longer need a different charging device and cable every time they purchase a new device, and can use one single charger for all their small and medium-sized portable electronic devices. Mobile phones, tablets, e-readers, earbuds, digital cameras, headphones and more that are rechargeable via a wired cable will have to be equipped with a USB Type-C port regardless of their manufacturer. Now, again, if you are a fan of tech, you will know that USB-C has been around for quite a few years now. It's been adopted for the last, I'd say, 10 years or so, coming up to 10 years, and it has fast become common for most manufacturers of electronic devices, especially smartphones in this case, which is what we're really going to talk about today. It's been quite common, especially on the Android side, for USB-C to use, but it's also been used in laptops and computers and that sort of thing as well. But now the bloc wants to make it standard across all devices, regardless of manufacturer. So why is this issue so contentious? Because it would make sense to have one charger to charge everything, right? Most smartphones use USB-C, a lot of laptops now have it, headphones now use it, so it would make sense to standardize this charger amongst all smartphones, all manufacturers in all EU countries. Well, there's just one slight problem. That problem is Apple. You see, we have to rewind the clock back to 2012, 10 years ago, because when Apple introduced the iPhone 5, they also introduced a brand new connector called Lightning. And Lightning was much smaller than the previous 30-pin connector that had come with the iPod and the first few iPhones. And Apple introduced this port because they said they wanted to improve data transfer, they wanted to make it reversible so that you could plug it in whichever way you wanted. And at the time, this was a really big development. Faster data transfer speeds, much better than the regular USB ports, the rectangular ones that you're most likely going to be used to. But after 2012, USB-C began to become more prominent and more companies began putting USB-C in their smartphones. So Samsung does it, Google does it, all of the major Android manufacturers now use USB-C in their phones. But if you own an Apple laptop or if you own an iPad, you'll be saying to yourself, well, hang on a second, doesn't that also use USB-C? To which you would be absolutely right. Apple's been including USB-C in its laptops since 2015 with the 12-inch MacBook, the one that's smaller than the MacBook Air. That had just a single USB-C port on it to be used with a variety of different dongles and accessories, which could then transfer data to the laptop. They introduced it to the MacBook Pro line the following year in 2016, 4 USB-C ports on the high-end MacBooks, 2 USB-C ports on the lower-end MacBook Pros. That design was criticized at the time because people said, well, hang on a second, you know, we have existing cables like HDMI, SD cards and all that stuff. We can't use those original cables. We have to now go through USB-C. And Apple was making a big push towards USB-C in its laptops. We all thought that they were going to be going full steam ahead with USB-C at the time. But over time, they kept introducing it into other product lines. They introduced it into the iPad Pro in 2018. They brought it to the iPad Airs, I think earlier this year or late last year. But for some reason, the one device that Apple hasn't included USB-C into is the iPhone. And that has been the big question mark over Apple's approach to USB-C. When will Apple make a USB-C iPhone? They've put it in all their other devices, but why not the iPhone? And this is where the big debate kicks in, because if this EU proposal goes through, which it looks almost certainly like it will go through, Apple is going to have a bit of a problem on its hands because they have spoken out previously against a move to mandate one single port across all devices. In September of 2021, they told the BBC, strict regulation mandating just one type of connector stifles innovation rather than encouraging it, which in turn will harm consumers in Europe and around the world. Which is very interesting, because they've also made the argument that changing ports again would lead to a lot of waste from existing chargers that have been bought over time, and switching over would be very confusing for consumers. But if they've already made the switch in most of their other devices, the iPads and the MacBooks, then surely it's not going to be that big of a deal. In fact, surely it would make more sense to make the switch in the iPhone. But they just don't seem to have an appetite to do so as things stand at the moment. Although the latest rumours are pointing towards Apple possibly introducing USB-C not onto the next iPhone launching, but the one after that in 2023. That may have USB-C on it, and that could be Apple bowing to pressure from the EU. Because let's make no mistake here, this proposal will almost certainly become law across the European Union. There's pretty much no going back after this point. USB-C is going to be commonplace. And the reality is, Apple, if it wants to keep selling their phones in Europe, they will have to make this change. They're going to have 2 years to decide what to do, whether they adopt the port or if they do something completely different. A lot of speculation that Apple might make their iPhone completely wireless before adopting USB-C, which would be crazy. And remember, 2 years ago, Apple introduced MagSafe, which is their newest wireless charging solution, the little puck that you slap onto the back of your phone to charge it. Many people saw MagSafe as the future for Apple, rather than Apple having to adopt USB-C. So it could be that Apple gets around this ruling by just ditching the Lightning port, not replacing it, and instead going all in on MagSafe, which would be a whole other controversy in itself. But it just goes to show you, the lengths of which that Apple could potentially want to go to stop USB-C being on their phones. The other big tidbit here for the UK specifically is that the government has said that they will not be copying this EU regulation. Now that we're out of the EU, the government does not have to go along with any EU directives that are put forward from this point. And so the UK government has said that it is not currently considering copying these EU plans for a common charging cable. However, the Brexit deal and the issues around the Northern Ireland Protocol mean that Northern Ireland may actually have to follow this rule, because Northern Ireland is somewhat still in the single market and the customs union. It has to follow certain rules. So we could be in a bizarre situation, and by the way, this is never going to happen, but just hypothetically, we could be in a situation where Apple would have to sell the iPhone in Europe with a USB-C port. In Great Britain, England, Scotland and Wales, they could sell it with a Lightning port, but then in Northern Ireland, they'd have to sell it with USB-C to follow the Northern Ireland Protocol and to follow the EU rules. I mean, that could just be an absolute mess, but as I say, that's not going to happen. Apple's going to do one standard procedure across all of its phones in all territories, so that's not going to be an issue, but certainly it's one we're going to keep an eye on, because it gets to the heart of innovation, regulation. EU politics is very complex. There's a lot more stages it has to go through before this becomes law, but it is definitely going to happen. USB-C is going to become the common charger in the EU. The question now is, will Apple adopt it on the iPhone? Probably not going to happen this year, but you never know, it might happen next year.